Hey everyone, and welcome. We have got another fantastic session of our every Friday Grad Clinic that's just about to begin. Stay tuned. I'm just going to set up the stream. Bear with me just a couple seconds and make sure we're syncing properly. Just going to give people a couple minutes to join as well. Make sure we're syncing. Now, as ever, this is your opportunity to get the support, mentorship, and help you need on whatever the main topic or struggle is you're having this week. It's also a tremendous opportunity to connect with other people in your field. I really strongly believe in the power of community, the power of working together to solve our collective challenges and help all of you to really fast track your careers. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is because, I myself, for those of you who don't know me, had a very bumpy road as a graduate student. I came from a small town in Texas with a family that didn't have a lot of experience with grad school or university. For the matter, they were immigrants, and I really struggled. I didn't have any support. I didn't have any connections. I actually flunked out my first term. And it was only really when I connected with a faculty member who was my first mentor, took me under his wing, and really showed me the ropes that I was able to get a step ahead. And it really turned things around for me and made a world of difference. I got my first publication out, helped me get into Yale University, and go on to later do my PhD at Cambridge and get on the tenure track at Harvard University. And now I'm a full professor at University Bocconi in Milan. Absolutely one of the best places you could possibly be in the world. And it's so nice because while so many academics struggle even to get a job, I was in the very fortunate position of choosing my dream position and carving out a space. And I want to help all of you to achieve the academic career of your dreams and go from where I was really struggling just to survive to having multiple options for how you can craft your career the way you want to do it. So I've got some great comments and suggestions that came in today. We're going to cover some really fantastic topics. One that I really like a lot that came from Sulanya is how to get out of a rut. A rut where you feel like you have no ideas, no topic, you're losing steam and energy and don't know what to do. I think that's something that a lot of you may be able to relate to. I've been there before, so we're going to talk about that first. Then Amina sent some comments that she has a faculty member who she knows inside her department, but she really wants to step up that relationship and wants to know what's the best way to approach him to really get into that kind of mentor-mentee relationship. And there's often a right and a wrong way to go about these things, and something you're just supposed to figure out. And some of you might not have been really accultured, especially if you are in a society with different norms than maybe the institution that you're in. Maybe you're not a local resident. And sometimes I even felt this going from Texas to the East Coast in the U.S. When I went to Yale for the first time, I really felt like a fish out of water and felt like everybody around me is so different, right? Drinking tea, eating cucumber sandwiches. So I think this is really nice a nice topic to cover as well. And then we have some other questions I know that are coming in through the group. So I'm just going to very quickly send everybody a quick welcome on both these platforms to make sure that you're all engaged. So a big welcome, everyone, and I'm especially a big welcome to some of our new members. Great to have you on board. We're really building up an open access community to serve as many grads possible. I especially appreciate when you invite friends and colleagues because that helps me reach people who might not otherwise benefit. I get so many messages that, look, this productivity training was just what I needed today. This really, really helped me rethink the way I think about my day. Or, people who have been really struggling to find the right mentor. Having that training, if you haven't seen it, go into the guide section of the Facebook group and you're going to find tons of valuable resources. And Amina, hey, great to see you jumping on the call. I'm just going to pull on Amina here for a second. Hi, Amina. Welcome. We're going to come to you. You're second up on the list for us. So I'm going to come to you in a second. We're going to cover how to get out of rut, and then I'm going to come to your question. So really good to have you join, Amina, and yeah, I'll be right back with you soon. With that, and guys, if you do have some questions along the way, pop those in the chat, and I'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. This is your hour. I also want to foreshadow, we've got a couple exciting sessions on the way. For first-gen grads, we are going to be doing a session with Dirk DeClaire, who is at University of Bocconi in Milan, is a first-gen grad, had to overcome some of his own personal struggles and hardships along the way. We're going to talk about specific challenges that first-gen grads face. So stay tuned for that. We have scheduled for November 5th. And then our very own Courtney, who is actually one of the co-instructors with me at Fast Track Grad, is going to be doing a great session on how to be productive and still do everything right for your family. She has 3 kids. This year she published more than 6 papers. You're not going to want to miss that if you have a relationship or family and you feel like you're struggling to hold it all together. So let's dive in. Okay. How to get out of a rut where you feel like you have no ideas, you don't know which direction to go, and you feel lost. There's really, to me, sometimes this is a symptom that things have already gone too far down a path that can really put you on towards a burnout cycle. And the reality is 1 in 3 students don't finish grad school, master's or PhD when they start, which is a terrible loss on a big investment that they've made in terms of time and money. So this is good that you first recognizing that you're in a rut is very important. But then it's not always obvious. What do you do? It's like, well, I've slipped into this hole. I can't figure out how to climb my way out of it. And probably one of the reasons you're in that hole in the first place is you might not have the support. You might not have trusted mentors, friends, family, others you can turn to for help. Well, you've got that help here in Fast Track Grad. But there are 3 things that I think can really help you get out of a rut and get you back on track. And when I say get on track, I mean, one of the things I see very talented students do is that they often get enticed by ideas. There's a thrill of a new idea, and they're constantly in the cycle of chasing a new idea. I sometimes think of it as chasing a squirrel. It's like, oh, I'm wandering around the forest. Oh, hey, there's that squirrel. Where's he going? Let's go follow him. And you really kind of, if you zoomed out and looked at the path you were taking, you kind of going in circles, but you're not really going anywhere. So it's very important to get out of this rut. The very first thing to do is you need to chart your North Star. You need to have a clear picture of where you're trying to get to career-wise, and make sure that the choice of your topic, what you're investing your time, energy into, and the skills that you're developing are pointing in that direction. So often I see students who are taking on topics because they were convenient or something their supervisor wanted them to do, but it's actually not moving them. It's not actually helping them progress to where they want to go. And often I see students, it's like they get in the car, they start driving down a path, and they wake up later only to find this is not where I want it to be. So make sure that you chart your North Star, because that's going to help you keep oriented and to stay focused. Now, for 3 tips, the topic is sometimes the one that students really struggle with, and it's hard to find a topic if you don't already have one, but it's essential. And people often will just inherit a topic from their supervisor, and that may be great. You might have a supervisor who's right at the top of the field. This is one of the reasons students at Ivy institutions stay at the top, because their supervisors are often right at the center of debates and hand them winning topics. Tremendous value if you have it, but if you don't, you can short circuit that process. So let me tell you about a hot debate. I was working with a student this week out in California, and she had been struggling with trying to find a good topic. She's very interested in undocumented immigrants and immigration. She wanted to do something linked to health, but that wasn't really of interest to her department. And so what I suggested that she do is my first recommendation to you guys, which is to try to intersect with a hot debate, a debate that's really ongoing in your field, that is of broad relevance, broad appeal, that many people are talking about. And that debate is very important. I can tell you a story of 2 of my postdocs. One postdoc, who I won't name names because some of you will know them, was by far the intellectually superior, the brighter, more productive. And he had a penchant for taking on very complex topics. He really loved the challenge. And then I had another postdoc who was not nearly as methodologically adept or capable, but she had a nose for choosing a hot topic. And she worked on, at the time, an area of food insecurity that was just blowing up in the UK. And she was actually faster in the end to get a permanent position than the other postdoc, who I thought was brighter, far more capable. He actually had a much tougher ride. And it really boiled down to one, chose a topic that she was passionate about, but it was right at the center of discussion in the field, and it was a bit of low-hanging fruit. She found it easy to find money. She found it easy to link up with NGOs, get involved. She gave several talks at the Houses of Parliament in England as a result of it. And so, and she got a lot of reinforcement, positive reinforcement from people around her, because everybody, going out to a bar, most of you may have had those conversations that people are like, well, what are you doing? Why is it important? How does that affect the real world? She got constant reinforcement because everybody could immediately see, oh, that's just so incredibly important what you're doing. Wow. And that feedback matters. So, hot debate. Coming back to my California student on immigration, a very simple low-hanging fruit way is you can take almost any topic at the moment, and if you intersect it with COVID, you will make it hot, because that is a hot parallel debate that you can latch it onto. So you could look at, say, how has the shock of COVID shaped anti-immigrant attitudes? Has it? There's a thought that maybe there's sometimes a fear of others. Anti-immigrant attitudes stem from people feeling like those people are not like us. They're unclean. They're dirty. Has COVID played into that, or has it served as more of a unifying rhetoric that, hey, we have this collective threat to all of us. We only succeed if we can vaccinate as many people as possible, and health is then used as a unifying rhetoric. And the reality is, countries have made very different choices in how to frame debates about COVID and those discussions, some polarizing, some inclusive. And so, that was a very simple way to take a topic on anti-immigrant attitudes, turn it into something where she felt like she was going into circles and make it hot. The other thing that you want to do in these debates is also intersect them in a way that can get support. So if you have existing faculty are not paying attention to you, often it's because you're just not very well connected getting support with them, because it's not in their wheelhouse. So she knew that one of her faculty members was really interested in looking at certain aspects of immigrants getting deported. Well, there's another low-hanging fruit piece there to say, okay, well, has a shock like COVID changed the extent to which we're deporting immigrants? These are just ideas, but I think you can instantly see, if you're floating around trying to find something, a topic that's of interest, you can connect it to a hot debate. Where can you find those hot debates? Well, one tactic and strategy that's worked well for a lot of my students can be to read op-eds of newspapers, because there there's an instant debate. Go read the leading journals in your field and look at the suggestions for future research. Look at some of the papers in the recent issues that are getting the most citations, and almost surely you're going to find some debate or discussion going on there. So that's one area, one way. We have some other tools of how you can identify a hot debate, but that's strategy number one. Strategy number two is what I call the Transpose Method, and it's very much simply to lift a method that's used in one field and bring it for the first time into your field. Now, I tend not to like this as much, because I like to drive research driven by passion and debates and research questions, but this can also be a way to break ground in a field, especially if the literature is very dense in your area. I did this personally early in my grad career, when I was kind of lost a little bit on ideas myself, and I didn't know what to do. And I was very concerned in global health about how it seemed like I was really concerned that it felt like big corporations were wielding an undue influence on the field. And I didn't like the idea that, Coca-Cola seemed to be setting the agenda for childhood obesity and funding big diabetes centers. That seemed like a massive conflict of interest. But there weren't really good tools to show to kind of document that or study it as a field of inquiry. The doctors and didn't really have much. So what did I do? I looked in political science and sociology for power structure tools that had looked at how do elites in society exercise undue influence on the activities of all of us. And so I was able to take and lift those tools that are commonplace in adjacent fields of sociology and political science, and bring them to bear for what was one of the first times on a topic of major interest to ask the question, well, who is really ruling global health? And that opened up a big research agenda that's now turned into a large subfield on commercial determinants of health. So that's the transpose method. That's number two. And you'll be able to know in your fields what that looks like. But there's a lot of low hanging fruit innovation just by, again, plucking those methods that are commonplace in adjacent fields, mastering those quickly, and bringing them to bear in your field for the first time. And the third, and this one I probably like the most, it's a little bit linked with the debate, is you really want to restore your passion. If you're in a rut, it can be hard to see a way out. You can feel really beat down, and one of the things that really happens in that case is so commonly is you just don't. I mean, sometimes people again start slipping into burnout, start getting depressed, start to withdraw from friends and others, and start to even feel a sense of shame, like they haven't done what they were supposed to do. And one of the ways to get out of this is to reclaim your passion. And I find passion for me often comes when I'm angry about something. I've always been very passionate about helping the weak and vulnerable. And when I feel like people are being caught in harm's way by forces that are outside their control and being hurt by others, I've always felt the need to try to help and protect them. I mean, I originally wanted to be a doctor in my training, and I realized I could do more to help others in other ways. One of them now giving back to the community through Fast Track here. And so when I've found I was very motivated by the areas of health inequalities because I found them avoidable and unfair, and it really motivated me. It made me angry. It made me want to do something about it. I mean, the comments of Martin Luther King says that the worst form of health inequality, the most damaging and the most damning, are those inequalities in health, and really stuck with me. So I would encourage you to find some kind of passion, something that really you just have that spring in your step, can't wait to get out of bed in the morning, where you feel like you're really making a difference in the world. And it's a great way to get out of a rut because then you realize you're working for something bigger than you, and that can be really, really inspiring. It can really help you through some of those hard times. And again, like I said about one of my earlier students who did so well, you will get positive feedback from people around you, and that also really can having that social support when you're feeling low, and it's going to happen to everybody. There are these ups and downs in this roller coaster that is the academic journey. It happens to me even now. You're going to want to build that sense of supportive community around you. So I hope these comments are helpful for you. The three main tips I recommend are really to find yourself a hot debate, to use our transpose method, to try to, I'm just popping these in our comments here, use a transpose method, and to really hone in on passion, especially if you can. For me, what's worked well is something that I'm angry about. And that often tells me if I'm really shaking things up, there's something I forcefully disagree with that really gets me animated to go on. So Sulanya, I know you're watching from Facebook Live, so you're not in here in the studio. Just want to say thank you for sharing that topic with us, and I know that's going to help a lot of people here in the group. So with that, I want to come in and bring Amina on the line. Amina, we're coming over to you, and I want you to, Amina, if you can, just say hi, share a little bit about yourself, and kind of what's going on at the moment with why you're trying to reach out to this particular professor to get some support.
Yeah, well, so basically, I am based in Morocco, and I'm a hydrogen technical engineer with almost 3 years of experience. When I started working, yeah, I realized I've seen some new things and know about how the work is done and what is missing, some struggles. I said to myself, I need to go back to school and yeah and learn more and go forward. So I started my master in construction management and technology at ASU, and online. It's online because I'm working and studying at the same time. Yeah, and um, now I'm half the way in my master's program and looking forward to do a master thesis that's gonna have a positive impact in here in where I live. I want, yeah. So I was hugely influenced by my professor for trenches construction. This is something I wasn't really aware about and or aware of, um, because here we only do open cuts. It's by default open cuts, but I realized that there's something that is more powerful and it saves time. It's less disturbance, especially when there's a crowded area. Yeah, here in my
Uh,
city. Yeah, here in my city.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
sorry, I mean, sorry to cut you off. And you know what? I really like to see you're passionate about it, and something that you could say, that you can see all the potential for the good that can happen from this type of construction, and want to extend it. So I like that. But you, so I just wanted to kind of clarify for everybody, because I know more, where you're at and where you're going. One of the things that I know you're challenging with, you've got to do your thesis, and you really want him, Dr. Sam, as you said he likes to be called, to supervise you. Is that right?
yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. And and because it is online, you don't have the same. You can't just go knock on the door. You've got to go through email. So, thanks for being willing to share this. I'm going to share my screen and look over what you sent, and hopefully you guys will be able to see this pretty clearly. But here's a draft of the email that Amina has to. And now, at first, when I saw this, I thought, Dr. Sam, is he going to like that? But you've told me that Dr. Sam
I knew that.
is okay.
Yeah.
That you know that he's okay with that.
Yeah.
So that's good. Now, one thing. So you've got a few good things in this email to point out. So you've got a really nice point to say, like his amazing class. So that's really great. I want to say, and I like that you say why it was amazing, although I want a little more detail. And this is great. So you really sound positive here. I think we can say this a little more efficiently. One thing is it's quite long, so I want to get this down. And the other thing I really wanted to say, when you approach a professor, you want to make it about them a bit more. And I often calculate the how much is it about them by what I call the I to you ratio, like how many I words are there to you words in making it about them. And I haven't calculated this because, to be honest, I mean, I just opened this up now for this session, but I can see that there's a lot of I going
I
on here, heavily more. I mean, you've balanced it a bit, thanks to you, but that's a lot more. So there's there's a lot of good here, but I think we can make this a little clearer. One thing that really jumps out as missing is, right, I wanted to see you kind of contextualize this, that this is really in this guy's wheelhouse, that this is his research, that this is what he wants to do, to make it clear that somehow you have the skills or you could get involved, that this would benefit him, so that you're less. So often I see students come to professors like a mendicant saying, oh, please can you help me, please can you help me, and as a professor I'm very busy, I can't take on all students, and especially a master's thesis that might have no hope of being published is not exactly at the top of my list to jump into. So the more organized you seem, the more qualified, clear, coherent, and that this is not going to be a big pile of work that just goes down a rabbit hole to go nowhere, the better. So I would tweak a couple things here. So one is I wanted you to I think the I to U ratio we've got to tweak. And I would like to see this more about his research. I would even like you to highlight, hey, I read, I took your class. That inspired me to read a couple of your recent publications. And your recent paper on this hugely inspired me. If it were at all possible, I know you're incredibly busy, I know, but would you consider supervising my topic? What I'd like to do is extend your research in this area. And that way you're not coming to them saying, here's some following topics that I want to do. You're changing the conversation, saying, here's the topics you do, and I would love to extend the topic you already do in this area. So just a few things, dear Dr. Sam. So I would tweak a couple things. We'll just do this very quickly. I won't be able to do all of it, but Thank you. Thank you so much for. And now he teaches a lot of classes. So when you say you're amazing class, he may not even know who you are at this point. You may even have to remind him for the amazing class
No,
on
but for
X.
this semester, for fall, he only has one class.
Okay, don't worry, don't worry though. You just bring it to his attention, and ideally, it's during the class is the time to really participate and engage in class to stand out, so that can flow even more naturally from conversations you've had in class. But I would say thank you for your amazing class. What was the name of the class again?
It is trenchless construction methods.
On trenchless construction methods. It's inspired me tremendously, so much so that I read several of your recent research papers on the topic. I don't know if he has some. You want to look him up. I don't know how to find Dr.
Yeah,
Sam
yeah.
quickly, but
There's a
well, if you
lot.
could say that. Look, and then to say here, I think you can actually cut a lot of this because he might not have a personal interest in Morocco and big projects where we only use tunneling. Make it a little more general, perhaps. But you get a lot of clues from what he's written. So, if it were at all, given so gentle flatter is good. Given your world leading expertise in this area, it would be a huge honor if you would be willing to supervise my master's master's thesis. I would like to do a case study in Morocco, my home country, extending your recent research on X, specifically on trenchless pipe replacement. If you know that this is an area, but I'm completely open to suggestions, and would be open to contribute to any of your ongoing research projects. So then you're saying, look, he may not want to do that, but maybe he has a project that he already has that he would love to have a student on. And because you want to work with him so much, you're expressing that you're open to working on his project. So when you put out this list, it kind of makes it sound like he's got like you may be a little bit less organized. So I would just want to be as organized as possible. He'll come back to you and edit this. But here it almost sounds like you're applying for job applications. So I said thank you for your consideration. And I would say something about your technical skills, so that he knows you actually have the ability and he's not working with a student who's a hot mess. So if there's any engineering or math modeling or any skill here, I'm well versed in, I don't know, math modeling, and would be delighted to contribute or something, and just an acknowledgement of how busy you are, which I like, to follow up at your convenience by phone, Zoom, or email. Let me just tweak this. So you got to tweak this a little bit. We're almost there. I hope this makes sense. So exactly. So you want to be a little more specific. You were hugely impressed by all your publications' research. It's better to be specific about one that directly in trenchless construction. I would be open to. I would welcome the opportunity to contribute to any of your ongoing research projects. I think I'm going to tweak. I'm just going to leave it like this. I would plan to do a case study extending your research on X, potentially on trenchless pipe replacement. Is this horizontal directional drilling a key area of his?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, However, I am completely open to suggest to your advice. I'll leave suggestions, and would be very happy to contribute to any of your ongoing research projects. Okay. He'll know about this. Thank you. I know completely. I understand how completely how busy you are, and would be delighted to follow up by your convenience at your convenience by phone. I guess you're not really checking my phone. Maybe by email
Zoom,
or so.
yeah, or
So
email.
this is pretty good. So I would put the I would put an example of a recent paper that really inspired you to kind of show you've done more, and then I think this is good. This will at least catch his attention because it's going to answer why him. It's going to frame the ethos that you are organized and you have an idea, but you're open to work on his ideas if there's a possibility there. And you recognize he's busy and you're happy to work around his schedule. How does that sound, Amina?
Yeah, that sounds great, and yeah, it has more chances to be read. Yeah, and be considered. Yeah, I also thought that the original one was a bit long.
Yeah. So this definitely because I mean I get so many emails and I sometimes they're too long. I'm like, well, I'll look at it later, and then I forget to look at it later. And remember,
Okay.
the higher up the professor
I
is,
also know how busy you are, so
no, don't worry. This is great. This is for the benefit of everybody. But listen, the higher up the professor is in the hierarchy, the more prominent, right? If you're approaching Nobel Prize winner, the harder it is. They're going to have more demands on them. The harder it is going to be to break through. And that's also something to calibrate. To think about the professors you're approaching as mentors, really qualify them. Do they have the time to invest in you? Because sometimes I see students go for just the very top professor in their field, but that professor might not have any time to give them the support that they need right now. So you've got to really make sure that they're qualified. They can help you publish and do the things you need to do, but that they're also willing, and you're not just kind of dragging them into it, into something that they don't want to do. And so I would just preface and say, I can't tell you the graveyard I have of emails that have gone unanswered when I was a grad trying to get help and support from faculty. That's okay. You just need a few mentors who are really going to invest in your success to see your career take off to the next level. So, I hope it's helpful, and I hope you'll let us know how this goes with Dr. Sam. I'm
yeah,
really
yeah,
excited to hear this.
I will definitely tell you. Yeah, thank you.
Super.
Yeah,
Well, I'm gonna send this back to you afterwards, and yeah, keep us in touch. How it goes. I'm gonna come back. We've got some questions coming through in the group. Oh, Stephanie, great to see you join. Also, McHillary, really glad to have you on with us today. Yes, Amina, thank you again. I'm gonna go back
thank
to the full
you.
screen.
Yeah,
Thanks again for sharing.
thank.
Um, so we've got a question coming through that I think is a particularly good one from Aditya. And is a hot debate always universal? I'd imagine every country would prioritize certain debates over others. What's your view? Um, Very good question. Science is quite international and global, but it's very heavily still the dominant forces are the US and the UK. Very, very dominant forces. So, you know, uh, it, it, it's tricky, right? So sometimes if you want to publish and say American Economic Review, well, it has American in the name. And Journal of the American Medical Association, it has American in the name for the reason. And unfortunately, often things in other countries just don't get the same attention. There's just not as much space in the journal. So I do encourage you to go for a debate that's going to be relevant to the journals you want to publish in. For example, Aditya, if you want to publish on topics on India, there's just not as much space in the journal. If you just go look at the pages in the American journals, there is more space allocated to topics that are related to an American audience. Especially if you want to go for big grant proposals or funding in those countries, you're going to need things that are they're going to ask, right? They're saying, well, these are taxpayer-funded dollars. What's the relevance to the American public? So it's just something to bear in mind. Now, if you want to be a professor in India, of course, that logic's different. And there can be a great value of a student in South Africa, and there can be great value in publishing in South African specific journals. I often recommend my students who want to be a professor in that country, a specific country, to do both. To tick the boxes that you can hit very high level international journals and forge international networks. So you're producing at the highest level in your field, and also stay local and relevant. So I really would encourage you to think about how to kind of square that circle. But at the very beginning, if you go for a debate that's very hot internationally and maybe is only lukewarm in your country, I would go for the hot international debate that's going to appeal with the top journals, and then kind of hone in and focus on maybe optimizing a debate inside your country. That's, for example, right? If I were just building my career right now and I really tried to engage on Italy-specific debates where I'm at now, I wouldn't do that at the beginning of my career. I might do that now because I think it's very important to contribute to the local environment, contribute my expertise where I'm at now. If I had expertise on trenchless construction, we were just talking about, I would get pretty annoyed by the state of construction going around in the city and the disruption it makes, and try to advocate for a better way. And I think we have a responsibility as academics to contribute back. But right now, many of you are in a stage where you're really trying to grow and amplify your careers, and that's why I would focus on a debate that's going to be hottest in especially and unfortunately the space of the leading journals. And I would say 95% of the time, those general scientific debates are also going to be relevant to your country, if that makes sense. But that was a very good question, Aditya. Thanks for sharing that with us. I can see Susan has a comment here on the other side. I was just going to share that was Aditya's comment there. Susan had a comment like the letter to the professor. Okay, I think I don't know if you're referring to Aditya as if the letter would be universal, or if you're just saying you like the letter. One of the things that I think is very tricky is kind of getting into differences in academic cultures. Sometimes if you're directly translating from another language into email, the way you might interact with faculty, say in your country, might be different than the nature in other countries. For example, when I got to Italy, I was struck just how formal and hierarchical people are here compared with in U.S. universities. In U.S. universities, I was used to, once you're a grad student, you're on a first name basis with your faculty. I try to do that with my grads here, and the grads have it so ingrained that you can't do that. I've had several for years, and they still won't call me by my first name. So it is important to be aware of some of those cultural nuances in constructing your email. But those general principles, I was sharing with you about getting that I to you ratio to be a little more favorable and to make it as much about them as possible, and to make it very specific to how you can help their research. These are all things that accumulate and increase your chances of a more favorable response. Got another question that came on here, although now it just seemed to disappear. It was how long okay. The question just disappeared somehow. Not sure why. But one other thing I wanted to say too, coming back to, here it is. It's just coming through now, and I don't know why it's not coming through on my stream. There's sometimes a little bit of a lag connecting things up, but here I've got the comments from, this one's coming from Cornelia, and let me just see if I can pull it back out. How long should we wait before sending a reminder email to the professor? That's a really good question, Cornelia. And I'm really pleased you asked that. And you don't want to harass them. And you definitely don't want to come to them with your back against the wall. I have students say, I need a rec letter tomorrow. Like, well, you guys are you guys are kind of up a creek because I can't get it done for you tomorrow. Um, I have done it for a few. I take it back. I've done it in a few very rare cases, but really, that's just kind of saying your time's more valuable than your professor's time. That they're going to somehow have all this time sitting around doing nothing that they can squeeze it in. That is just often, unfortunately, not the case. So I really like your question here, Cornelia. I would say a week as just kind of a rule of thumb. I think a week is reasonable. Again, I would try also to time your messages. So if you send something on Friday afternoon or on a weekend, don't expect a response. I often do respond, although I don't promise that I will. But I tend to like sending things kind of middle of Mondays or Tuesdays are sometimes some pretty nice times. Good question, Cornelia. Thank you. And then we've got another one here from Fred from Sweden. Thanks for sharing this. Just share this here. Could you talk a little bit about the time different publications take to complete? I contributed 8 hours to an editorial after systematic review. That took 500 hours. Yeah. So obviously, an op-ed takes a fair bit of time, but it's not going to take you nearly as long as research. Of course, a systematic review will probably have a lot more weight overall than an editorial, unless that editorial's in Nature or a very top journal. 500 hours is a lot for a systematic review. By the way, we just have our first batch of our fast track students who joined in our fall cohort. Just to give you a time comparison, within a month, most registered with Prospero, and they're now getting in about a month and a half to the point of start to completion and submitting to journals. So there are definitely some ways to optimize your efficiency on the publications. But the time publications take to complete can vary considerably. Suppose you want to do a randomized controlled trial. That's just going to eat away at your whole life. I'm inherently lazy. I like for you guys to pluck low-hanging fruit. I remember when I was on tenure track at Harvard, there was a Chinese professor who was quite prominent in the department. I don't think he liked me very much. He said, "Oh, well, all you do, David, is you." He actually called me Professor Stuckler because he was trying to pull rank on me with this. All you do, Professor Stuckler, is you pluck low-hanging fruit. I was like, yeah, well, Bill, you just leave it to rot on the vine. So, send it my way. And it was just this because, I like low-hanging fruit because we don't have, I don't want to spend 5 years doing a randomized controlled trial that may or may not work. We're in a world where we want faster evidence, faster turnarounds on things, and so, some evidence is going to take that time. But I would argue early on, when you need to get on the fast track in your field, that's not the time to do it. That's the kind of project you want to do when you're established, you have the safety of a permanent position, that you can take on that decade-long project that will forever alter the landscape of your field. So just to come back to your question, Fred, which is a good one, I think the analyses that can be the fastest are going to be the ones where there is already available secondary data on your topic. That secondary data can be in a number of ways. It can be a quantitative data set. It can be you doing a desk review, systematic review. I would put into that because that's secondary data. Your data are the research articles. Articles that take a little bit longer are if you have to do, say, a survey, or you have to go do some interviews if you're doing qualitative work. And then at the farther end, if you're trying to do trial-based work. So you'll see the bulk of my work, rather than randomized controlled trials, a lot of my quantitative work recently has been around natural experiments. This just won the Nobel Prize, I believe, last week in economics. And it just tries to simulate the benefits of randomized controlled trials without actually going through and doing a randomized controlled trial. And they also happen to be the best approaches to deal with big population level questions that are often right at the heart of the big debates I care about. So if you're interested in that, let me know. It's something we've taught a lot on. It's actually the way I start my students learning quantitative methods, not from formulas and stats, but I start them learning from natural experiments, getting them right to the forefront of the field. And I think it's a more intuitive way to learn. So yeah, so Fred, a roundabout answer to your question, it can vary considerably, but just saying that you spend 500 hours, I know doing things for the first time, you're going to encounter all sorts of roadblocks, and I've seen several students in systematic reviews not having done it the first time have to go back and redo steps and wish they had known that, wish they had known that they weren't told, because learning from a book is another thing from actually doing it. So if you guys are doing some systematic reviews, do let me know. We have some ways to help you save time. And just on systematic reviews, I just want to say, I'm coming back to our get out of the rut discussion. Those systematic reviews are really a great way for you guys to see the gaps in your field, to see the low hanging fruit. It's like, well, I've mapped out the entire field. Oh, now I see like there's an open goal over there. I'm gonna focus on that. So I do encourage you guys too. If you're really stuck in a rut, you're bankrupt for ideas. You don't know, you don't have any idea of what you're passionate about. Do think about doing a systematic review. It's something that is just a good skill to have in your kit, to be a savvy consumer of evidence. It's something you want as a global citizen anyway, but it definitely will help you feel confident, have a strong foundation going forward. And help you have the conversations like Amina is having with her professor. Really, really help you have a laser-like focus on what's important. Got another good question coming here from the group. I want to join Harvard for my PhD. I hope that one day I could be a student from Sudan who joins this legendary place. Look, I remember when I applied to Yale, there's a very negative attitude of people saying to me like, "Well, don't get your hopes up. Like, we haven't sent anybody there before. Like, just don't dream small." And I don't like that. I like the students I work with. I want all of you in this group. I want you to dream big and aim very high, and get the support in place you need to achieve it. And so yeah, I think this is coming from Omnia. Excellent, yes. And if you take the right steps, there are now programs that do make it possible for people, and people, especially places like Harvard, do want to open up more opportunities. I mean, I see you got a dash, so take care, Mina. Thanks again for joining. That open up more opportunities for grads from developing countries, and so you can definitely get in that pipeline. I do encourage you to watch our Applying to the PhD masterclass to work on connections using some of the approaches that we were just chatting about with Amina, because one of the most important things that you can do now to prepare is start extending your network and start publishing. And it sounds like you're on the right track. You're saying that here you're doing a systematic review in the space. So yeah, you're definitely on the right track there. So I like to see that. And so also, yes, Stephanie, good to see you. And let me just look. I'm just scrolling through the feed on different comments. One other point that I wanted to make in terms of debate, I was thinking about you, Aditya, is you can even do what I've called like the grandma test. You can try to explain your area in terms to your grandmother, and if she can understand why it's important, you're probably onto something relevant. And I encourage you all to be able to have the ability to make an elevator pitch speech, that kind of 30-second pitch to explain why what you're doing is important. I want all of you to have that ability. So with Amina's topic on trenchless construction, I think everybody can immediately see how that's going to be an important area. Those of you, even if you're doing something very esoteric in science, maybe about proteins that are very obscure and people don't know about, you could still articulate their relevance in terms of disease outcomes that people know and care about. So I was early on working on a protein, RLIP76, and it was some of the first research I did in a wet research cancer lab. And I was explaining the implications for that as a target to help fight cancer without causing so much toxic side effects to patients. So it was often a limiting factor for how much of the cancer drugs they could take. And people could understand that, even though what I was doing in the lab was rather complex and involved biological mechanisms no one understood. Everybody could get why that was important. and that had implications for drug development. So just want to do that. And if your grandmother can see that this is important, that's usually a good sign. If she can't, you have either got to improve your communication, which is something you want to do anyway, or potentially rethink your topic. So guys, we got a little bit more time for questions. If you have anything that we can cover. Just looking, Lee, good to see you joining us as well. Nice to have you on. I really like we get. It's really nice when we get in this group. We have some. I'm really proud. We have fantastic people from all over the world. Some who work at WHO. Some who are at the very beginning of their masters. We have some full professors in this group as well. People from education, from engineering, as you saw a moment ago. Big dreams. I do encourage you guys to also link up with each other. Often, one thing my students know is I say, Watson had a crick, and often some of the great scientists have worked in pairs, have had others to help them and be partners along the journey, to keep motivated, to keep passionate, and especially at a time of COVID when many students are feeling isolated. That's incredibly important. Again, it's probably the genesis of this program. It started out of me wanting to create more support for my grad students who I felt were suffering, who hadn't seen each other, they weren't getting the power of the network and the cohort, which is one of the main benefits of a PhD, is you getting on a fast track with other people who are going to go on to be leaders in your field. And they were just missing out on that totally. And that led me to create this program. And then my students started asking, hey, can I invite my friends? And then it grew into what you see today. So guys, thanks for joining. I think this is a good place to stop for now. I got a really exciting lineup again coming forward. Don't miss Dirk's session on first gen grads that we're going to have on November 5th. And definitely mark your calendar for Courtney's session coming up on the 12th about how to stay productive with family and maintaining important relationships. Both of these you're not going to want to miss. I'm always open to your topic suggestions. I know many of you want to do real world research that makes a difference in the world. So send me your best questions and we will cover them every Friday along with our other trainings. And guys, if some of you do want to chat, it's something I like to do with everybody in the group. Drop me a line, DM me. Let's set up a call so that I can help connect you to the right resources, 100% free, that are in the group for you. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and I will look forward to seeing you at our usual time on Friday, and we will be in touch in the DMs.